extra time in Sochi, and you may remember Russia went to extra time and penalties in the round of 16 against Spain. And of course Croatia have also experienced that as well at this tournament. Also in the round of 16 they went to extra time and penalties against Denmark. So it's familiar territory for both nations. So if it goes to penalties, well, it's in the lap of the gods, and certainly Croatia will hope that Daniel Subasic, who was so effective in that penalty shootout against Denmark, will remain fit to continue, because he was really splendid in the penalty shootout. He's had a very good tournament. But the players in what is a very warm night in Sochi out on their feet. But they have another 30 minutes of football to be played to see if they can be separated. If not, then we're off to penalties once again. So stalemate in the second half. Richie, do you think they're going to be separated in extra time?
I don't think either team did enough to win the game. If we're seeing footage here of tired-looking players getting treatment, I think the real winner so far in this is Gareth Southgate and the England players. As you mentioned, both of these teams needed extra time and penalties in the previous round. They now have to deal with an extra half an hour and possibly penalties. All of this will add to the fatigue that they're carrying into the game on Wednesday night. The game went as we expected it to, but I think Russia are sticking to their task. They're limited, they know they are. Croatia have had more of the ball but can't get an opening. Perisic hitting the post early on. After about an hour was the closest either team have come.
Going on what we've seen so far, Diddy, in tonight's match and indeed in the tournament, do you think either of these sides will say, let's get this to penalties?
Russia will take it. I think the more likely will be Croatia, because they have all the ball. Russia defend, they're not really interested in committing players forward. Hardly created anything, or created nothing really in the second half. If you offer Russia a penalty shootout, I'm sure they'll take it. I'm not sure about Croatia, because if there was a goal, I think it'll be Croatia, because I don't know how Russia is going to score if you don't commit players forward.
OK, but we know when players get tired, mistakes can be made. And Damien, you've experience of playing in extra time in the World Cup. I mean, what's the fatigue factor like for these players?
Well, everyone thinks legs, but it's your mental side as well. You could see from the last two corners there, Russia totally switched off. They were daydreaming and Croatia nearly got in on it. But for all Croatia's possession, Russia look as equally as dangerous in attack. But it's going to be harder for Croatia now. Russia have 5 midfielders on with Gazinski and Orikine. So, listen, it's going to be something special or a horrendous mistake, because they do look dead on their feet.
Well, as you can see, Subasic is still on the pitch for Croatia, making his way back between the sticks. Akinfeev, a hero in the round of 16. Will he be called upon in a penalty shootout? We'll find out very shortly. Penalties, lads, is very much a lottery, and we can't say this shootout is going to favour one or the other, because both of them have been there before.
But I think both goalkeepers should be confident given their performance in the previous round. Akinfeev saved 2 against Spain. Subasic saved 3 against Denmark. But Subasic is carrying a knock. We saw him get treatment towards the end of the game. He seemed to be struggling with his hamstring. If that is a problem, that will absolutely affect his performance in this. Penalty kicks aren't a lottery, Peter. It's preparation is so important. Southgate and England players are one group who've come out and said how much work they put into preparing for this situation.
So you're going to tell us who's going to score which penalty then?
Well, predicting it is difficult, but taking it is a skill that you can prepare for. You can do a lot to practice, to eliminate all the surrounding things that would distract the player and just focus on the task at hand, which is to score from 12 yards. Fatigue is massively important in this case. We saw so many players on the ground needing treatment between normal time and extra time.
So much hinges on the performance of both goalkeepers. So the penalty shootout is about to begin in Sochi. It's hosting its final World Cup game of the tournament, but what a dramatic evening it is turning out to be. And taking us through the penalty shootout. Yes, so there it is. We have our 4 semi-finalists. France will play Belgium on Tuesday, and England will now face Croatia in that second semi-final on Wednesday. We're down to 4 at the 2018 World Cup, and well, very emotional scenes, needless to say, in Sochi. Joy for the Croatians as they reach the semi-final stages of a World Cup for only the second time in their relatively brief history. But what a moment it is for them, and absolute devastation for a Russian side that confounded their critics at home and abroad with a wonderful run through this tournament. But the quarter-final just proved a step too far. It came down to penalties. They came close, but not close enough. And a couple of very good saves by Subasic once again has helped Croatia reach the last 4 of the World Cup. So devastating for the Russian fans who really got behind the team after that opening win in the group phase. They had a bit of a down moment after a very disappointing final group game against Uruguay, but otherwise it's been a very good tournament for them. And even though they'll be devastated, obviously, but Russia, they've been good hosts and they've provided us with no end of entertainment, it has to be said.
Well, the world thought it's maybe the worst Russian team in history, or the worst host ever hosting a World Cup. They've done their country proud. Look at the fans. They deserve every bit of credit and applause they get on the fans here. They've been absolutely magnificent, because we thought, and we said throughout the competition, they're one-dimensional, they play one way. But I've got to say, that extra time was probably the best bit of football, or the most exciting football I've seen in a long time. It was end-to-end. And they showed another side. And maybe with hindsight, I think they'll be happy with the quarter-final, but maybe hindsight, maybe they'd be thinking, or the manager will be thinking, maybe we should have been a bit more proactive, because when we did put the players forward, we created chances. And I've got to say, the extra time was simply outstanding. It was just an advertisement for football and for the World Cup itself.
Yeah, it really was breathtaking stuff. And Damien, we wondered about the fatigue, and a lot of the Croatian players looked out on their feet at one point, and all of a sudden they seemed to find that second breath.
They did, but in fairness, Peter, I think Russia could have nicked it in the end. They finished stronger, especially after Fernandez's goal. But yeah, like Diddy said, that last 10 minutes in extra time was some of the best football I've seen in a long time. Maybe not great quality, but for pure excitement. Listen, it's never a nice way to go out with a penalty shootout. I'd never call anyone a villain for stepping up in a penalty shootout, but I have to say, Smolov, you know, that's his game anyway. He flicks, he tricks. Yeah. He came in as the starting number 9. He got dropped for Zhuba, because you know what you'll get out of Zhuba. You know, a Panenka penalty, I think, was first done in 1976, the Czechoslovakia player. If you take a Panenka penalty, you have to score. I remember, I think it was a Pirlo against England, he scored it. You know, I think Vladimir's henchmen will be ringing him tonight, because, you know, you cannot, the hopes of a nation are resting on him. You cannot go out missing a penalty like that. You cannot.
And there are the dignitaries. They've enjoyed it too. The Croatian president, of course, will be the happier of the two, needless to say. And Luka Modric, what a performance by the Croatian midfield dynamo to lead his team through to the semi-finals of the World Cup. Yeah, and just on the issue of penalty kicks, Richie, Damien's saying, you know, you can't take a risk, but I suppose maybe from his point of view, I mean, very often we see that, in fact, in most cases, the keeper picks his side, he goes. So sometimes a little dink or something down the middle, I mean, we see it done quite often, don't we? Do you think it's as risky a strategy as Damien's suggesting?
Well, you could turn around and say every goal that goes in, the technique is spot on, the decision-making was correct. But when you do this, it's majestic if it goes in. You're sitting back in awe at someone who'll have the bottle and the composure to not only think of doing that, but to actually deliver it in circumstances like this. When you miss, though, you just look like an absolute fool. He's not the only one, of course, that missed.
No, and I mean, when Kovacic missed then, did he? I mean, yeah. that got them back on level terms.
No, 100%. And they were coming back on Damien's issue. I think it happened in the playoff final a couple of years ago. I can't remember the player. It was either Brighton or Leicester, and there were riots in the dressing room after the game, because I have no sympathy for him. I'm in Damien's boat. You can't do it. What you say, he goes one way or another, right, side for the ball. If you want to go down the middle, side foot it, hip height, and the ball is 9 out of 10 times it goes in. There's a lot more room for error if you do a Panenka, because you do the laces and you've got to kind of dink it. There's a chance you dink it over the goal, or you don't get enough elevation on it. What happened there? So no sympathy. Yes, they got back level. And it was just a shame that Fernandez, who was absolutely outstanding, scored the equaliser. It was bombing down the wing all evening. He was absolutely outstanding. And if I fancied one player to score, it would have been him. but it just slightly mishits it and goes an inch wide.
And then, of course, Luka Modric, possibly, Croatia's player of the tournament so far. Undoubtedly.
I thought this penalty was amazing because it took about 3 seconds for us to work out whether or not it gone in or not. Keeper gets a hand on it, it goes against the post, and then it just take forever to see the side net and balls. But he just ran. His energy levels at the end were extraordinary. He just did what he does in so many games, and I'm delighted actually he scored.
Yeah, and then just the one goal in it then until they got to the 5th penalty, and all Rakitic had to do was stick it in the net, Damien. Simple as that.
Yeah, you never doubt it. Even his walk up, he just looked as cool as ice, and he put it in the same spot as he did against Denmark last Sunday. Like I said, never in doubt. Pure class, and that's what the big players do. They step up in pressure situations like that. And I said, going into Wednesday now with England, you would have to say, Croatia, they've got through tonight, but if you're an England player watching, you wouldn't be too worried whether you got Croatia or Russia.
OK, when we look back on the game in its entirety, at the end of extra time, Richie, was 2-2 a fair result? And I know penalties isn't the ideal way to finish a game, but as fair as any system?
I think so. They sat here at the end of normal time and I couldn't see any reason that either team would begrudge the fact that they were taking the extra time. I don't think anyone did enough in normal time. Croatia got the goal again, 2 set-piece goals in extra time. I think the introduction of VAR and that system is starting to have an impact. Players cannot commit fouls, they can't pull shirts, they can't cheat in the box, they have to defend in legitimate ways, which is creating opportunities for attacking players. So we've got 2 more set-piece goals. I think Russia deserved it, the attitude they showed. Coursing through their veins is a never say die attitude, and they showed it in abundance when they went 2-1 down, so they deserved their equaliser. Long-winded answer, no, you needed penalties to separate these. Yeah, we did. And the previous extra time games, we didn't get a goal, Didi, and when Vida got his, we thought, well, that's it, it's decided now, Croatia will be able to see the game out. But let's have a look at Vida's goal for starters.
Well, Choluka came on and he's the player. This is the corner, and I think it's a lack of communication. The keeper is coming together. I understand the defender that he wants to clear it, and Choluka coming in. When we see the replay, there's 3v2 on the penalty spot, and Vida gets a free header, and Choluka tries to flick it on. Unfortunately for Croatia, he misses. Keeper is onside. It trickles into the net on the back post. But they've been a threat. They had some very good deliveries. Russia overall defended set pieces really well, but this is just one of the situations which happen in a game. Player is free, gets ahead, and they had a slice of luck they didn't have in the first half when Perisic hit that inside of the post.
Rishi? Oh, sorry, I thought you had something to say there. No,
nothing.
No, well, let's talk about the equaliser. It was typical of Russia's approach. They still didn't give up the ghost, and they got back into it through the Fernandes goal.
Yeah, like Richie said, maybe not on quality, but they just deserved it just to get back in on pure effort, what they've given over the past 2-3 weeks. Fernandes, the only Brazilian that was left in the World Cup, absolutely amazing header, gets in the middle of Mandzukic and Korluka, awful defending, you'd have to say. But yeah, that jumped out at me, like Richie says. No one was afraid to touch each other tonight because of this VAR and so many penalties being given away. But great ball in from Zagoev, who they missed throughout the tournament. He pulled his hamstring on the first day. So amazing goal from Fernandes, but obviously devastated with missing the penalty. Yeah,
I suppose when Russia look back, Richie, one thing they did produce during this tournament, maybe not the greatest attacking flowing football that we've seen in the tournament, but they produced some brilliant goals. And the Cheryshev goal in the first half shows the sort of technique that he's demonstrated on many occasions throughout this tournament.
It was a goal of the highest qualities. It's definitely in the shortlist for the goal of the tournament. Good play from Zubac, just showed real composure. 1-2 with him, but again, very little space here. Attacks like a knife through butter to the middle of the Croatian midfield. 2 defenders, central defenders, come out to close him down. Bobbles slightly on the turf and just catches it perfectly. Goalkeeper's absolutely no chance. But yeah, they've lacked, for all the outstanding goals that they've scored, and he himself has scored probably 3 of them, they have lacked quality going forward collectively, because their main strengths are in defence, their main strengths are their work rate and their energy levels, and they play a fairly one-dimensional style of football, and it's gotten them to this stage. And They've had a tremendous tournament. Massively exceeded expectations.
They certainly have. And Croatia, well, they proved their steel as well, Didi, because having gone one down in that first half, they showed they had the capacity to come back as well, didn't they?
They did, and they'll be going into their semi-final full of confidence. I still fancy England because I think they've been the more impressive or dominant team. But they've been behind in both knockout games, actually. And then they had the setback of missing a penalty in extra time against Denmark. Still found a way on penalties. And they just have quality. They don't show it often enough, but when they do need to step up, they do. And the question is always, is there another gear? If they go behind against England, is there another gear to do the same against England? That's a question they have to answer, and I'm not too sure, because for all the good play and the energy Modric is showing, Kramaric, even Rebic today in Perisic, they've been pretty toothless, and they found it very, very hard to open up that Russian defence. So, yeah, I think it'll be an exciting game. They deserve their place, and what they've got is steel, and they've got tactical nous. They're very clever boys, they're very smart, and they, well, needed penalties twice, but you've got to appreciate their courage, and you've got to appreciate the belief they've got.
Yeah, they've had a tough World Cup, but they've survived all the tests that have been thrown at them.